I'll see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun, destroy the ring of...
Hey, Middle-earth Roleplaying fans. Roman Daisel here. Back with another adventure module. Today we're going to be looking at Rogues of the Borderlands. This is 8014 of the series. So this was released in 1990. And I think I bought it from, I'm going to say Endless Adventure. Or maybe Imperial Hobbies for, I don't know, 12 bucks at the time. Might have been less, might have been more. It's been a long time. And the cover art is by Agnes McBride. And it shows a wraith, or almost like a barrow wight kind of idea. You'll know more about this guy in the module itself. And it's a pretty cool cover. I like the cover. So the expectations were pretty cool. If you flip over to the back cover, you'll see that shows Numeriador. So it's going into a region that's never really talked about. Tolkien doesn't mention anything about it except for the fact that dwarves live in the Blue Mountain area of Numeriador, and the elves live in Lindon on the other side of the Blue Mountains. So it doesn't really mention, he doesn't go into a lot of detail. So this was uncharted territory for ice. So we'll go through this and see what we got. Alright, so we're back down on the battle board here. Flip open the inside cover, and you get a nice map of the northern area of Lune and Numeriador, the Talith Mule up into Arthedain, and the northern Lune area. You also have the nan-i-naugrim, so a lot of the adventures are going to take part in this place. So it's a pretty decent map. It connects well with the others. Got your table of contents, the guidelines adapting this module, and then of course you have the introduction to the region. Nothing special there. It's an interesting read, and it gives another little map of the area. So the nan-i-naugrim has Nogrod and Telenog. Telenog is where Belegost used to be, and Nogrod is where Nogrod used to be. The ancient dwarven mansions of the Blue Mountains during the First Age collapsed during the catalysm of the War of Wrath, and then it gives all the little elven villages and mannish towns in the region. One thing I was disappointed is it doesn't give the layouts for Karis Salern, which is supposed to be the biggest mannish town on the Lune itself. Nor does it go into the Mythlond area. So it's kind of disappointed in that. And you have the geography of the area of Lune, the foothills, the climate, the flora and the fauna, herbs that you can find, poisons. And with the fauna you get the herbivores, so if you need a hunt or something. Birds and flying creatures. Great eagles are probably the biggest ones. It doesn't mention great eagles in the area of Lune, but I can see it happening. There being a colony there that survived the First Age. Just like in the Misty Mountains, there's a colony of great eagles. So it's not something that would be out of the realms of possibility. Though the great eagles wouldn't interfere as much and have less to do. Reptiles like snakes, predators like bears, cave bears, gray wolves, dire wolves, all natural stuff. Insects, I don't know why we need insects. Knickerbeakers, domestic animals. Monsters, now they mentioned trolls. It's possible that trolls would venture from the northern border of Arthedain into the Lune. That is definitely something I could see. But they would definitely stay on the eastern side of the Blue Mountains, because the elves would be all over and then they come out of the west. And they probably stick to the northern area of Lune, not come south. The closer they get to Mythlond, the more they're going to run into elves. Felbeasts. I highly doubt there are any Felbeasts in the area of Lune. That is an ice creation. Felbeasts are something I would think would be more in the Grey Mountains and the Mountains of Mordor. Maybe in the further east. But Felbeasts in the area of Lune, no. Evil horns and trees. Anything like Old Man Willow in the Old Forest, yes, I could see that happening. So that's not within the bounds of reason. Next up, you get the peoples and cultures. You got the Rivermen, which are in Northman culture that go down the rivers of Eriador. There would also be the ancient Eriadorian culture as well in the foothills. The Dunedain, they would have exiles living there. Even though the most of them live within the bounds of Arthedain, there'd be a few that decide they've had enough and take off over the Lune. And when Arthedain completely falls as the last surviving Dunedain kingdom in Arnor, a fair amount of Dunedain would have fled over the Lune. Some of them might have stayed. The Rangers definitely would have had a settlement or two there and keep a watch on things. The biggest inhabitants would be the Dwarves. So obviously you get the Dwarves of Thrar's tribe and Dwalin's folk, who dwelt in Nogrod and Belagos in the First Age. However, they suffered mainly from the cataclysm of the War of Wrath, and many Dwarves of the Blue Mountains actually fled to Moria and swelled its numbers. Khazad-dûm went through a huge expansion period, but then when the Balrog appeared in Khazad-dûm, many of the Blue Mountain Dwarves fled back to the Heirloom, while Durin's folk went all the way up to the Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, and into the Grey Mountains. Eventually, after Smaug came into Erebor, Durin's folk, led by Thrain, settled in the Blue Mountains for a while. And it was Thorin that led a party of his followers onto Erebor to reclaim the mountain. So Durin's folk would have left the Blue Mountains sometime after that happened, after the refounding of the kingdom. So then you get the ruins of Nogrod and Belagos. It would have been cooler had they given layouts for those two places, but they didn't. And you got elves, always have elves. So the further down into southern Numeriador you go, you're going to come across elves. And eventually you'll get to the Grey Havens of Mithlond. There's a haven on each side of the Lune. And then finally other races like the Lostoth would venture down. Politics and power. The Kingdom of Arthurian is obviously one of the powers, but they pretty much stick to their side of the Lune and don't really cross into Numeriador. They have a very loose presence there. The Elves would have more of a presence in Numeriador, only up to a certain point, but would interfere if anything major came down that way. And then the Dwarves obviously have a great influence in the northern and central parts of the Numeriador. If Angmar was to launch an invasion of Numeriador, it would be such a long supply line, that it could be cut easily, and that's why Angmar never really invaded the Lune area. It's at the end of a very long supply line. So it does give a description of the exile of Durin's house from 2791 to 2941. So about 150 years. People of note: Curdane. I always say Cerdane, but it's Curdane. Cinda Elf, 60 level. Obviously he's the ruler of Linden. Galdor, another Cinda Elf who's in the area. Thrar the Third, dwarf of Thrar's tribe. Thorin the Second, who is obviously from the Hobbit. And then Arthurontor, who was the Great Eagle in the region. Again, I really don't worry about him too much. Then we go with towns and villages. So there's more. These are managed settlements. Gives a description of them, of each one, like Colwake and Arumar, Eridimar, Malome Itarma, and Caris-Salerno, which is the biggest town in the region, the Lampwater town. Arthedain would have more control over Caris-Salerno than anywhere else in the Numeriador region, and I wish they had given a layout and description of that town. Then you get the Dwarven Vale of Nogrod and Telenog, and finally Elvish Havens. Talks about how the great port of Mithlond has 21,000 elves, although that would fluctuate over the years. And then the final has Galanros, which is a small elvish town in the central Numeriador. Alright, so that's all those descriptions. Then it goes into the first adventure, which is the Legend of the Ice Caves. Yeah, Old Bear's Tale. Bear, the dwarf who goes off and looking for stuff, goes into a cave, and he thinks he finds a specter, a ghost, and he scares the hell out of him. So he runs back to the inn and tells everyone the tale. So it gives the backstory of that. It gives the more NPCs, like the Keeper of the Waters, which is the inn. But really it's a bandit, character, leader of the bandits. So you're going after bandits again. Seems like these books, there's always bandits. I consider going after bandits nothing more than first, second, third level guys getting more experience before they try something tougher. Starting adventures. So they scare the leader of this bandit clan scares the hell out of the dwarf, and that sets up the whole thing. Then you got his little band of merry men. Anyone else? And finally you got the setting of Colwig, the small town, Bear's home, the ice caves, and it talks about everything within the ice caves. So you got a regional layout of the ice caves themselves. So number 1 is Colwig, and then the ice caves are at 3. More layouts for the ice caves. It's starting the task, starting the players. So basically your task to help old bear try and discover the mystery. So it's like Mystery Inc. You need Scooby for this one. I like the picture of Carador. He looks like the guy from Meet the Robinsons, the bad guy, or the one antagonist, Groob, who's not really a bad guy, but he's just misled. It looks like that guy from Meet the Robinsons. So obviously you're going to have your obstacles, your aids, the rewards, encounters with the bandit miners. Then we go right off to the second one. This one you need like a, not first level, but you need like anywhere from 3 to 5 level guys. No sense of humor. Talks about a bunch of trolls who are setting up traps as pranks to hurt people. And one of the traps they set hurt another troll, but it's bigger. A bigger troll. It's kind of a dumb adventure, I think. You're basically hunting trolls, finding out who's setting these traps and then going about killing them. Trolls are never fun to mess with, though, so you gotta be careful. These guys are hill trolls, and they deal with a cave troll. Then it gives you other NPC guys like Thodo Proudfoot. There'd be a few hobbits in the Eredluna region at that time. Because the Shire wasn't fully settled by 1640. It just started getting settled. So many hobbits were still kind of adventurous or looking for that safer place. You got a riverman hunter. Then it goes off to the setting in the woods. Then their lair, which is, you can use this for anywhere, which is kind of nice. Typical troll lair. Woomag's lair, again, typical. You got tasks, starting the player's aids, obstacles, rewards, and encounters. So the traps, most of them are utilize a bash attack. So obviously something falling on you. Next, we get the Celigan Barrows. So these are first stage or second age burials for men. And the Tale of the Burial Mounds. So you get this guy, Gothroth. He's a disciple of Sauron in the second age. Somehow he ends up in Numeriador. You got to read the whole backstory. He's supposed to be a friend of the Witchking. And he's been tasked to go and awaken the dead in these barrow mounds in Numeriador. Would they have barrow downs in the Numeriador area? Yes. I can't see why not. So he's basically a barrow-wight. Yay. And he's trying to animate the corpses and use them to sow fear and panic in the inhabitants and create an army of undead. It's a common theme, I guess, in MERP characters. So you get NPCs. Garothar, he's a Numenorean lieutenant of the second age. Got woken up and sent there. Elven seers. Elves of Galenros. If he really was active, they would have sent for help from Mithlond to the Elves in Linden, and they would have came and did a number on this guy. So you got the setting, and then the Celigan Barrows, which are high up in the foothills. His mound, entry room, possession room, gifts, the tomb itself. So you get the town of Galenros, which isn't walled. Garamos Mound, which is kind of like a Celtic mound. Pretty cool looking. And then the various barrows in the region. So this is for someone who's level 5 and up. So you go from your first adventure, which is just to get you going, get you used to it. Second adventure is a little more upscale. And then the third adventure is where you try and gain, you need more, the experienced guys. Aids, obstacles, rewards, and encounters. Next, other adventures, Stolen Sword. Trade between the Naugrim and the Great House of Arthedain. So going after thieves. Eagle's Nest. Try and get an egg from one of the Great Eagles. Yeah, right. Good luck with that one. Not only would the Eagles have something to say about that, the Elves would be pissed off too. The Mines of Belagos. This would be interesting if they gave you layouts for it. To go look for ancient treasures. I guess you could use the Moria book for that, or the Grey Mountains book, but it would have been nice if they used layouts. So NPCs for the legend for all the 3 adventures. Major NPCs of Numeriador. Beast tables, encounter table, weather table, wind table. Got your product listing, and finally you have a map of the southern Eredluna. So you see Kaer Salarnen, the western Shire area, the Emyn which is the Tower Hills, and then Mithlond's right down in the corner there. So that is that book. Alright, so that was Rogues of the Borderlands. What did I think of this book? I was actually disappointed. it wasn't that great. The adventures were pretty weak. You got your typical go after smugglers or thieves, and trolls, and then you have this guy who's, what the hell is he doing in Numeriador? As soon as he gets powerful enough, the Elves of Linden are going to come over like gangbusters and beat his ass. So the adventures were weak. The layouts weren't all that great. I did like reading some of the backstories. I would have rather have seen more about the dwarves of Belagost and Nogrod, the two ancient dwarven cities, and what was built, or even would rather have seen the layout of Thorin's home in the Blue Mountains, where the Hobbit all started, the idea. And yeah, I was not impressed with this book. It could have been. I was expecting so much more. But you know, it is what it is. For low adventurers looking to go into somewhere else, it'll do to get experience points. But definitely not as good as Dark Mage Rudar. But anyway, any Middle-earth Roleplaying fans, let me know if you guys had this book. What were your thoughts? Leave comments in the comment section. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and let people know. Until next time, I'm Roman Daisel. I am out of here.
Shadows increasing, peace throughout the land is ceasing. Evil mist flows through the valley, silence wailing, never ceasing.